Hey, and welcome to day number 5 of this video series where I try to rebuild this World War II vehicle in Fusion 360 without any previous knowledge of the application. So if you would like to join my journey, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so that you do not miss any new uploads. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you what I have learned about creating sketches in Fusion 360. So let's switch over to the software and let's get started. There are several different ways to start a sketch in Fusion 360. The first one is located in the toolbar. It's this icon here, Create Sketch. You can find it in the surface bar likewise. And when you click on it, Fusion wants you to select the plane where to start the sketch. So I choose the top plane here. And at the same time, I have now access to the sketch toolbar, so I can create different types of lines, I can modify them, I can add constraints. Let me quickly draw a rectangle here, like so. And when I'm done sketching, I click on Finish Sketch to exit the sketch mode. And at the same time, when you look at the browser here, a new folder gets attached with the sketch in it. You can show and hide it here. By double clicking on the name, you can rename it, and by double clicking on the icon, you enter sketch mode again, where you can do adjustments, and when you are done, you simply finish the sketch again to exit this mode. Now let me delete this one again and show the origin and the planes. And you can also start sketching by selecting one of these planes, right click on it and click on Create Sketch. So this allows us to enter the sketch mode again. I click on Finish Sketch here. It's currently empty, so I delete it. And then of course you can also simply right click somewhere on the screen, click on Sketch, choose any of the sketch tools like the 2-point rectangle, select the plane again and start sketching. Now it works the same way when you have 3D objects in your scene. So let me get rid of this sketch first, and then I pick a box primitive, draw it on the top plane, give it some height, select an edge, right click on it, chamfer, like so, click on OK. So let me also hide the origin and the planes. And now I can start drawing a sketch on this planar face by simply clicking on it, right click, create sketch. I enter the sketch mode again, select my rectangle, draw it on this planar face and exit the sketch. This is great because it allows you to start a new sketch on already existing faces. So you do not have to create a new sketch always on the top plane or the front plane or the right plane. You can use planar faces of already existing objects and simply start your sketch there. Now let's get rid of this sketch and the solid. And then I simply start a new sketch again and I pick the top plane to enter the sketch mode. One of the sketch tools that you will use all the time is the line tool. It's available up here. It's also the first one in the drop down menu, and currently the letter L is assigned to it. So this means when you press the L shortcut key on your keyboard, the line tool becomes active. When you press the shortcut key S, we get access to the sketch shortcuts window, and here the line tool is the first in the list. And it's also available when you right click somewhere on the canvas, go down to sketch and activate the line tool from here. And now I can continue to draw a few lines to the canvas, and when I connect the last line with the starting point, I create a close profile. And you can tell that it is a close profile by the blue shading that I can turn on and off in the sketch palette over here by clicking on Show Profile. And I usually leave this checked so I can tell what profiles are closed and what not. Of course I can rotate around the model even if I'm in sketch mode, like so. But it's usually a good idea to set the camera back perpendicular to the plane or the sketch before you continue drawing, and you can do this simply by clicking on a close profile and then click at Look At over here in the sketch palette or down here, and this sets the camera normal to the sketch again. Now let me get rid of these lines and activate the line tool again by pressing the L key on the keyboard. And when I hover over the grid points, you can see that the cursor snaps to them. This is possible because the snap function over here in the sketch palette is turned on. If I turn it off, there's no snapping anymore. If I turn it back on, it snaps again to the grid points. And you can turn it on and off also on the fly by hitting the control key while you are hovering over the grid points. And when I do so, there is no snapping. When I release the control key, it snaps again to the grid points. Now let me draw a line like so. And before I click to define the endpoint of the line, I can add certain values. So currently I can define the length of the line because this is the value that is marked in blue. So let's say I type in something like 350. Then I get a little lock icon next to this value, which means that the line has now a defined length of 350. When I now press the tab key, I switch down to the degree value, and here I can also enter a specific value. Let's try something like 45 for instance. And when I then move the cursor left and right, I define the position of the sketch. And all that's left to do is hit the enter key to exit the line tool. And now I end up with a line that has a specific length and a specific angle. You don't have to define any of these values while you are drawing. You can define them when you are done with drawing. I activate the line tool again and draw a few lines like so. And then I go to create, and at the very bottom of the drop-down menu is the sketch dimension tool. The shortcut D is also assigned to it, and I can now start adding dimensions and setting the length of the line segments like so. Let's do another one over here. Let's type in 400 millimeters for this one, and let's define also the last one, and this one I'm gonna set to 200. And if I click one line first, then move over to the second line and click on it, I can define the angle between two lines. Let's set this one down to something like 80. And let's do the same for these two lines over here too. And then I end up with a set of lines that have specific dimensions and specific angles. You have probably already noticed this dotted orange line over here that was part of the first drawing, and this one is a construction line. It's basically a regular line that is turned into a construction line. So if I draw one and click on it and go over to the sketch palette and click on construction, Fusion 360 turns this line into a construction line. And this means that the line serves the purpose of driving a drawing, so to speak. I cannot use a construction line to build surfaces or solids, so let me quickly extend this one here like so, and then I get rid of the other drawings. I take this, move it closer to the center, then I finish the sketch and switch over to the surface tab, and here I select under create extrude surfaces, and when I do this you can see that I'm only able to extrude lines that are not construction lines. You can always go back and edit the sketch by double clicking at the sketch icon in the timeline, or by double clicking at the sketch icon in the browser, or by right clicking on the drawing and click on edit profile sketch. This brings us to the sketch environment again, where I can adjust the lines. So let's add some dimensions and maybe an angle like so. And when I'm done with editing, I exit or finish the sketch, and my line extrusion is updated accordingly. Next, let's take a look at sketch constraints, and for this reason I delete the surface body again and the sketch. I start a new sketch on the top plane again, and then I press the S shortcut key on the keyboard to get access to the 2-point rectangle here. And when I do this, you can see that over here in the sketch palette, I have now several different options for rectangles. And I continue with the center rectangle, move the cursor over the origin and draw out the rectangle construction from here. When I now try to move the rectangle away from the center, I'm not able to do so, and this is because the midpoints of these construction lines are constrained or locked to the origin right here. And I can even apply further constraints by simply switching to the dimension tool and add a dimension to this line here. Let me type in 300, and as you can see, the top and the bottom line, they both now turned black. So previously they were blue, now they are black, and this means that the distance between these lines and the position of these lines is now fully defined. When I now add an additional dimension between the lines on the side, I turn my sketch into a fully defined sketch. And you can tell that it is fully defined because all of the lines that were previously blue have now turned black. And when I now try to grab a corner of the box and move it around, I cannot do this anymore because the whole thing is fixed to the origin in the center and the sides are defined by these 2 dimensions. Now, I'm sure that you have already noticed these symbols here, and these are constraint icons. So the one at the bottom, if I hover over it, you can see that the bottom line turns slightly blue, and this means that this constraint belongs to this bottom line. If you click on the constraint, you can see that it is a horizontal constraint as it is written in the right bottom corner. The same goes for these slightly tilted double lines on each side of the rectangle. So if I click one of these symbols or icons, also the one on the other side gets highlighted. And this means that these constraints belong together. When I now delete the horizontal constraint at the bottom by simply selecting it and hit delete on the keyboard, the entire rectangle turns blue again. So it's not fully defined anymore. And this means I can now, for instance, grab this corner and start rotating the rectangle around the center point. And this is only possible because we get rid of the horizontal constraint. In the bottom corner, you can see another constraint that looks a little bit like a reversed T. And whenever you have problems to select it because many different items are overlapping each other, simply hover over the object you would like to select, left click, keep the mouse clicked, and then you can choose from this little drop down menu what item you want to select. And in this case, I would like to select the perpendicular constraint. And when I get rid of this one, I can now grab the corner of our rectangle and start moving it around. So these 2 lines are no longer in a right angle anymore. All of the lines are still parallel, of course, because we have these parallel constraints on each side, but I can now squeeze the rectangle and rotate it around the center. Of course, I can also go the other way around and add some constraints again to turn the sketch into a fully defined sketch. I go up to the constraints, and here I choose the horizontal and the vertical constraint. So that's the first one in the list. I have docked this one down to my shortcut menu. So if I hit the S key, I have it here. And then I simply click on this line over here. And then the tool is still active also on this line. So I have assigned a horizontal and a vertical constraint to the drawing. And then I've turned it into a fully defined sketch again. So in this case, and because we have also added a vertical constraint, it was not necessary to add an additional perpendicular constraint to the corner. You don't have to anchor a sketch to the origin to turn it into a fully defined sketch. So let me get rid of the rectangle here, hit the C key on the keyboard to activate the circle tool. Then I draw a circle next to the origin like so. Add dimensions with the D key, set it to 200 millimeters, and then I add dimensions from the origin to the center point of the object like so, 300, and I do this one more time, again from the center point of the circle to the origin, this time in a vertical direction, 200, and now I have turned the sketch into a fully defined sketch again. I can continue by selecting the circle, hitting Ctrl C to create a copy, hitting Ctrl V to place the copy. This brings up the move and copy dialog box, and then I move the circle over like so. Click on OK, and as you can see, the copy already has dimensions applied to it. So I select the dimension, delete them, and I can now select both circles, go up to the constraints, assign an equal constraint, and when I now change the dimension of the first circle, it also drives the size or the dimensions of the second circle. The second circle is not fully defined yet because I can still move it around in space, even if its diameter is driven by the first circle. But let's continue with drawing or connecting these two sketches with some lines. So I hit L on the keyboard to activate the line tool. Then I draw a line, and here I make sure that I touch the top of the circle, and this is where this little tangent icon appears. And I do the same at the bottom, like so. Then I hit the escape key to exit the line drawing tool, and then I trim these lines. So you can find the trim and the extend tools in the modify tab. I select trim. You can also access it by hitting the T key on your keyboard, and then I simply click on this line here to delete it, and I do the same on the other side over here. Then I hit the escape key again to exit the trim tool. Even if we have trimmed away our circles, the dimension is still valid. So if I go in and type something else than 100, everything changes accordingly. And you have probably also noticed that a few constraints were automatically set. So the first one is the horizontal constraint for the top line. The second one is this parallel constraint for the top and the bottom line. And the third one is this tangent constraint for the lines that were touching the circle. The arch on the right is still blue, which means that the sketch is not fully defined yet. I can grab the center point of our circle here and move it around, and I can change this by selecting the dimension tool again and add some dimensions to the line section in between, like so, and this turns my construction into a fully defined sketch. Now let's say you would like to move the drawing. In this case, you would have to get rid of the two dimensions that anchor the sketch to the origin. So it was this one here and the vertical dimension down here. And at the same time, the sketch lines turn blue again, but this allows us to move the entire thing around on the canvas. And now let's say I would like to position it on the origin, or I would like to position this top line here on the origin. I go to the constraints, pick coincidence, click the origin first, then I hover over the top line, and at the same time I hold down the shift key. So this lets me select the center point of this line, and when I click on it, the sketch gets placed in the center of my scene. Let's assume you are dealing with a complex but symmetrical design. Under these circumstances, it makes sense to focus on one side of the drawing first and then to mirror it at the end. And you can do this the following way. I activate the line drawing tool again. Then I draw a line in the center from top to bottom, like so. Exit the tool, select the line, turn it into a construction line. And then I go to modify, trim, and trim away everything that's right to the construction line, like so. Exit the trim tool, go to create, mirror, select the three parts of our remaining sketch, choose the construction line in the center as my mirror line, like so, and then I click on OK. This way I end up with a drawing where I can adjust one side and the other side follows accordingly. I can now continue to make this a fully defined sketch by making the lines and the arcs tangent. I have selected both. I activate the tangent tool, then I select the arch again and the bottom line, make them tangent 2. And last but not least, I apply a fixed constraint to the center line, like so. Hit the D key to open up the dimensions, give it a dimension of 300 millimeters, and end up with a fully defined sketch. Last but not least, I select the outlines of my sketch like so, go to Modify, Offset. As you can see, the shortcut key O is assigned to the offset command, and then I offset the whole thing by, let's say, 20 millimeters. Click OK, and then I'm ready to finish the sketch. And you do not have to click here to finish the sketch. In case you want to extrude it, you can simply hit the Q key on your keyboard, then select the part of the sketch you want to extrude, give it some height, click on OK, and you are done. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching the whole thing. I'm pretty sure that there is still a lot to cover when it comes to creating sketches in Fusion 360, but this is all I know up to this point. As you know, I have just started learning the application, and I'm sure that I have missed a few important things, but I'm gonna address sketching in Fusion in the future videos for sure. Now, thumbs up if you like the content, subscribe, and feel free to ask in case something isn't clear, so leave a comment in the comment section below, and see you in the next one.